In 2010, a photograph of Keanu Reeves traveled around the entire world. He was sitting alone on a park bench, eating a sandwich, his shoulders bent, his eyes somewhere far away. The internet gave the picture a name. They called him the saddest man in Hollywood, and they laughed. Millions of people laughed and shared it and turned it into a joke that would follow him for years. But almost none of them knew what that face was actually carrying, because it wasn't sadness. It was something the world had never once taken the time to understand. Most people know Keanu Reeves as the quiet one, the actor who never seems to raise his voice, the man in the long black coat from The Matrix, the gentle, grieving killer from John Wick, the guy who gives up his seat on the subway and slips away before anyone can even think to thank him. For years, the world has treated his stillness like a riddle. Why is he so kind? Why is he so humble? Why does a man who could have anything at all seem to want so very little? People made memes about it. They turned him into a legend, a saint, a symbol. And in doing all of that, they walked right past the real story, because the gentleness you see in Keanu Reeves was not something he was simply born with. It was not a personality. It was not an act. It was something he learned, slowly, and at a price that most of us could never imagine being asked to pay. This is the story of what actually shaped that quiet man. Not the fame, not the money, the loss. One loss after another, and what he chose, against every reason a person could have to become bitter, to do with it instead. The losing started early. Keanu was born far from Hollywood in Beirut, and he was only 3 years old when his father walked out of his life and did not come back. His mother moved him from country to country, city to city, school to school. By the time he was a teenager, he had passed through several different schools. A quiet boy who struggled to read because of a dyslexia that no one back then knew how to name. He learned young that people leave, that homes are temporary, that the safest thing a boy can do is watch and listen and never ask for too much. But in 1989, on the set of a film called Parenthood, he met someone who changed all of that. His name was River Phoenix. They were both young actors, both intense, both a little lost, and they became almost like brothers. 2 years later, they made a film together, My Own Private Idaho. The story goes that Keanu wanted River in that film so badly that he climbed onto his motorcycle and rode more than 1,000 miles from Toronto all the way down to Florida, just to put the script into his friend's hands in person. River looked at him and said, "Okay, I'll do it if you do it. I won't do it if you won't." That was the kind of bond they had, a whole friendship in a single sentence. Keanu would later describe him as original, unique, fiercely creative, thoughtful, brave, and funny. His favorite memory of River was almost nothing at all. The two of them on a motorcycle during filming, River riding on the back, just two friends playing on a good day. And then, on a night at the end of October, 1993, outside a club on the Sunset Strip, River Phoenix collapsed. He was 23 years old. He did not survive the night. Keanu was not there. He got the news the way the rest of us get the worst news of our lives. Suddenly, and from far away, in a phone call that splits your life into a before and an after. Friends say it changed something in him. That for a long time afterward he thought about death constantly. And even decades later he still could not bring himself to talk about River in the past tense. "I hate speaking about him in the past," he said. For Keanu, River never quite turned into a memory. He stayed a person. That was the first great loss of his life. It would not be the last. By then, another shadow had already entered his life, one the public would barely hear about for years, because Keanu made sure of it. In 1991, his younger sister Kim was diagnosed with leukemia, blood cancer, and while the world was busy turning Keanu into a movie star, watching him in Point Break, in Speed, and eventually in The Matrix, he was quietly living a second life that no camera ever filmed. He became his sister's caregiver, not in name, in practice, at the very height of his fame, when he could have been anywhere, doing anything, saying yes to every film in Hollywood. He chose again and again to be at her side instead. He cooked her meals, he cleaned her house, he prepared her medications, and he sat by her bed through the long nights and the very worst of it. Picture that for a second. The most bankable action star in the world, on a movie set one week, and on his knees beside his sister's sickbed the next. Only one of those two places ever made the news. Kim once said something about her brother that stays with you. "My brother is my prince," she said. "He listens to every word, to every comma after every word that you are saying." When the pain got really bad, she remembered, he would sit with her and hold her hand and keep the bad man from making her dance. That was how she described her big brother chasing her fear away, keeping the bad man from making her dance. Her fight against cancer lasted the better part of a decade, nearly 10 years. And through all of it, Keanu did something he never advertised and rarely even admitted. He took a large share of what he had earned, the money the whole world assumed he was quietly keeping for himself, and he gave it away. He poured his own resources into her care without a second thought. He funded cancer research. He started a private foundation and refused to put his own name anywhere near it because he did not want the credit and he did not want the attention. He supported children's hospitals. When someone finally asked him about it, years later, he simply said he didn't like to attach his name to these things. He just wanted the money to help somebody. This is the man the internet decided to feel sorry for. But the deepest wound of all was still ahead of him, and it came in a way that no person should ever have to survive even once, let alone twice. In the late 1990s, Keanu fell in love with a young woman named Jennifer Syme. She was bright and creative and full of life. In 1999, the two of them were expecting a child together, a daughter. They had already chosen her name, Ava Archer. You can imagine the nursery they must have started to picture. The whole future folded up inside that one small name. But 8 months into the pregnancy, something went terribly wrong, and their baby was born still. She came into the world on the 24th of December, on Christmas Eve, into a silence that no mother and no father is ever ready for. From that day on, the happiest night on the calendar would carry, for both of them, the weight of the child they never got to bring home. The grief of losing Ava was more than the young couple could hold together, and not long after they drifted apart. But they never stopped loving each other. They stayed close. By every account, they were slowly, gently finding their way back to one another. And then, on the 2nd of April, 2001, a little more than a year after they lost their daughter, Jennifer died in a car accident on a road in Los Angeles. She was 28 years old. Stop for just a moment and let the true weight of that land. In the space of roughly 15 months, Keanu Reeves lost his daughter, and then he lost the mother of his daughter. He grieved a child he never got to raise, and then he grieved the very woman he had planned to raise her with. In little more than a year, the entire family he had begun to build was simply gone. There are losses that fame cannot soften, that money cannot touch, that all the love of a watching world cannot reach. This was one of them. He did not go on television to talk about it. He did not write a book or give a tearful interview or ask anyone for their sympathy. He mostly disappeared into his work and into his grief. and he carried it the only way he had ever known how, quietly and alone. Years later, when someone gently asked him what he believed happens to us when we die, he did not offer some grand and comforting speech. He thought about it, and then he said only this: "I know that the ones who love us will miss us." A man who had done more missing than almost anyone, saying the truest thing he knew. And that is exactly what the whole world got wrong about the lonely photograph on the bench. That was not a man who had given up. That was a man who had walked straight through the fire, again and again and again, and had somehow come out the other side carrying something that most of us never even learn how to hold. Because here is what grief does to some people. It closes them. It makes them hard, bitter, cold. It teaches them that the world took something from them, and so they spend the rest of their lives taking back. But every so often, rarely and beautifully, it does the exact opposite. Every so often, a person is completely hollowed out by loss, and then quietly decides to fill that empty space with gentleness. That is who Keanu Reeves chose to become. Think of the Harley-Davidson motorcycles he bought out of his own pocket for the stunt team who threw their bodies down staircases and through windows just to make him look good. Think of the millions in profit he quietly signed away on the Matrix sequels so that the crew, the effects artists, the costume designers, the invisible people whose names scroll by at the end that nobody reads, could be paid what they were actually worth. Think of the pay cuts he took on films like The Devil's Advocate and The Replacements, so that legends like Al Pacino and Gene Hackman could afford to stand on screen beside him. He once shrugged the whole thing off by saying that money was the last thing he thought about, that he already had enough to live on, quietly, for a very long time. And here is the part that tells you everything. Keanu almost never confirms any of these stories himself. He does not post about them. He does not mention them in interviews. Nearly every one of them reached the world sideways, from a stagehand who was there, from a crew member who never forgot it, from a stranger on a train who realized only afterward who had just given up their seat. A kindness that has to be reported by other people, because the man who did it will not talk about it. That is a rare and particular kind of good. And it wasn't only the grand gestures. It was the seat he gives up on the train, the quiet way he stops and actually looks at a person and listens, the way his sister said he listens, to every comma after every word. None of it was a performance. None of it was for a camera. It was simply a man who knew, all the way down in his bones, exactly how much it hurts to lose someone you love, and who had decided that he would not add even one more ounce of pain to a world that was already so full of it. He would take pain away, wherever he could, for whoever he could, for as long as he was here to do it. That is not sadness. That is what love looks like after it has survived the very worst thing that can happen to it. Grief, they say, never really ends. It just changes its shape. It softens. It settles. It becomes a quiet part of who you are, and it walks beside you for the rest of your days. Keanu Reeves has spent his whole life learning that lesson, and somehow, instead of letting it make him smaller, or harder, or colder, he let it make him kinder. The world looked at a single lonely photograph on a bench and saw a punchline. What was really sitting there was a man who had taken the heaviest sorrow a human heart can hold and turned it slowly into the gentlest kind of light, and then asked for absolutely nothing in return. There is a reason a story like his belongs here, on this channel, because the man we gathered to remember here, Robin Williams, did the very same thing with his own life. He took his own quiet, private pain, and he spent every day he was given turning it into laughter and warmth and light for everyone else around him. Some people carry their sorrow inward and then hand the world something better in its place. Robin was one of those rare people, and so all along was the man on that bench. The world just never stopped laughing long enough to see it. And when the world finally asked him about that famous lonely photograph, the one they had laughed at for years, Keanu didn't defend himself. He didn't tell them about River, or Ava, or Jennifer, or the long nights at his sister's bedside. He just smiled a little and said, "I was hungry." That was all. No pity, no speech. He let the world keep its joke, and he quietly kept his light, which may be the most Keanu Reeves thing he has ever done. If this story moved you today, consider joining our family here as a keeper of the light. It's a small way to help us keep telling stories like this one, the quiet, human ones that the world so often walks right past. You'll find the join button right below this video. However you choose to support us, thank you for being here with us. Stay with us and help us keep that kind of light alive.